big Illinois win as the Fighting Illini take down Maryland 24-6 in a game that was needed for Illinois to get back to another 10-win season after another one last year. A lot to still play for the Illinois Fighting Illini, and this football team went out there, continued to do that. Great defensive performance, held Maryland to just 293 total yards, but they also had a third down conversion rate of 3 out of 12. That is about 25%, which is something you definitely wanted to see in this game. This is Talk Illini, part of the Orange and Blue News in the On3 network. I'm JR, that's Carson Bounds, and we are here to recap the entire game. Now, Carson, you were at the game. You saw it happen there. What were the things that stood out to you the most after you saw everything in the game?
Yeah, one thing that kind of rose both in the game and also just came to attention post game we got to talk to some of the players that Matt Bailey had brought up was continuity on the defensive side of the ball. Early in the season, when the defensive woes arose, a lot of that resulted from, in my opinion, overusing substitutions throughout the game. You know, Illinois would play with some of these late sub rules that they were able to exploit last year in that bowl game in South Carolina. They went maybe a little too hard with it early on in the season, and that burnt them at times. This year this game, last couple games, really, we've seen some rotations, but they're not subbing every play on the defensive side of the ball. And that continuity is allowing the defense to, I guess, get in a little bit more of a rhythm. That's the way I've heard multiple players describe it now. And, I think it's 19 combined points over the last two games allowed. That's, after they gave up, essentially 500,000 points to Indiana and Washington. This is a massive, massive improvement. And like I said, I think a large portion of it is just continuity and not overdoing substitutions.
For sure, yeah, and I mean it has to be stated as well. Maryland only ran for 55 yards in this game. Now, DeJuan Williams did have a 16-yarder at the beginning of the game, and so that kind of was like, oh no, gosh, we're going to see, a good rushing game from Maryland, but the defense corrected themselves quickly. He only had 43 yards in the game. Their backup running back had 5 carries for 6 yards, Nolan Ray, and this is not a Maryland team that runs the ball super well, but what they can do is they can pass the ball, and Malik Washington was 25 of 46 on the day with 1 interception and no touchdown. But no touchdowns at all for Maryland in this one. I think this defense is continuing to play more confident. You kind of see them out there being more aggressive as well. Felt like, and Carson, maybe you see this the same way too, but in addition to the substitutions, it felt like this defense kind of lost their confidence after the Ohio State game. They didn't look like they were playing with as much fire under their chest and really going out there and going all out. Not say all out. That makes it sound like they weren't giving effort. Of course they're giving effort, but it just didn't look like the defense was as confident in themselves and really going after it. And it felt like in this game, they pinned their ears back and they went after it a whole lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing from my time with the team that I remember being preached during practices was your safeties and your corners needing to know when to pull the trigger and having the confidence to do it, even if they weren't necessarily doing it at the right time. And we saw that today. Mistakes were made, but guys pulled the trigger earlier. They made quicker decisions. And end of the day, that's a confidence thing. That's something you can't necessarily coach, but it just has to come with play. It has to come with reps. And ultimately, it's just like an internal switch. And some players flip it, some players don't. But as we get down this home stretch of the season, especially as guys are on the field longer and have more time to process and get these reps in, it seems like more of them, especially guys like Matt Bailey, he's a great example of this. It seems like he's flipped that switch and he's making that more decisive decisions at a much faster rate now. And that's, we're seeing the results on the field. The defense is playing out of their minds.
For sure. And there was only 1 sack and only 3 tackles for loss in this game, so it wasn't a game where, they had a bunch of sacks and a bunch of stuff behind the line of scrimmage. But what they did have a lot of was 9 pass breakups in this game. You had 2 from Dylan Rosiak, 1 from Terry Cox Jr., 2 from Juice Clark as well. I think that's the leaders there. 2 from Angelo McCollum, the defensive lineman. He had some batted down balls as well, so you love to see that kind of stuff. Just great all-around play from the defense, really getting it at the offense and disrupting things. Maybe not always behind the line of scrimmage, but disrupting things and not allowing them to make things happen. On the other side of the ball, Carson, we saw another good game from Luke Altmaier. He did have a pick, and he was 15 of 25, but I was really impressed by the rushing in this game. 225 yards on the ground. They rushed it 48 times in the game. Now, I think there was maybe 1 or 2 sacks in there, if I am correct. Yeah, there was 1 sack in there, so, with college, the way they do the stats. There's one in there, but overall, 47 times they rushed the ball in this one for 225 yards. Only one touchdown rush from Caden Fagan. Aiden Lawfrey was not in the game for this one, and Khalil Valentine was 20 of 64. Caden Fagan was 14 for 81 yards and a touchdown. What'd you get out of the rushing game in this one, Carson?
Yeah, I mean, this honestly goes back to the style of coach Brett Bielema historically has been. If you could get 4 and some change yards per carry throughout the entirety of a game, especially if you're nursing a lead already, more often than not, Coach Bielema is more than happy to take that. And he did that today. You know, most of our yards in the air came earlier in the game. You know, the broken coverage to Hudson Clement. Clement talked post game about how in like pregame film they noticed that the corners like to jump routes a lot, and we saw that twice today where Clement got wide open headed into the end zone because corners jumped routes. You know, one was to double cover Hank Beatty on a route. Another one was literally just a corner trying to jump a route, and then Luke going over the top instead of throwing it shallow. Like, once you got the lead, their defense did not have the guys they needed to make stops. And if you're going to average 5 yards a carry, that's a first down on every play. And Illinois was more than happy to take 5-6 minutes of possession when they were able to.
For sure, and that's the Brett Bielema way. When he has an advantage on the ground, he's definitely going to utilize it, and he utilized it there for sure. You brought up Hudson Clement, 3 receptions, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns in this one. One of them was a busted coverage, but still credit to Clement for finding the area of the field and getting there, and obviously making the catch and getting into the end zone. Luke Altmaier, only 15 of 25 on the day, but like you said, once they kind of knew it was in hand, they didn't really pay all that much attention to going back to the run. But Luke Altmaier continues to be utilized as a runner. I love this development of the offense. He was kind of used as like a scrambler to get yards early on in the season, but now they're doing a lot more designed runs with him and utilizing him in the rushing game, making him a threat in addition to the running backs. And I think overall, it's just helped the running game altogether. Luke Altmaier, 11 carries for 62 yards. Again, there was 1 sack in there, but he did have a long of 27 in this game. What'd you see out of Luke Altmaier in this one, Carson?
Yeah, honestly, the best play of the game was one that ended up not counting, was the Luke Meyer rushing touchdown, which got brought back off of, I believe, a hold on Khalil Valentine, which, Khalil is not considered to be much of a blocker. He's a smaller running back. So, honestly, I'm not too mad at Khalil for that one. That's it's like, hey, I'm just happy to see that you could put hands on somebody, honestly. But, it was a great play by Luke. He broke free on that and got, I think it was about a 30-yard run into the end zone, got away from a few guys. But yeah, Luke's running really opens up the offense, especially throughout times this year. We've seen some of our larger running backs when they're on the field. It's easier for teams to stack the box against us. And knowing that there's an option for Luke to pull it and cut it outside makes defenses respect us. They have to spread out further. They can't just they can't just stack 4 or 5 guys inside the box and have them wait for Caden Fagan. You have to have somebody spying Luke at all times. And that also opens up the passing game more. It opens up more short routes. We've seen Hank Beatty get open in the slot a lot off of plays like this, where, the RPO quick game has just been so effective for him. And while they didn't necessarily push it too quickly tonight, tempo-wise, you saw much of the same that you've seen over the last few games.
For sure. I mean, when you look at the box score in this one, it wasn't necessarily like Illinois dominated yards and things like that. They had about 100 more yards than Maryland. Overall, they had obviously a lot more rushing yards than Maryland. I said 55 for them earlier and 225 for Illinois, but this was just a game where they had situational football, and once they got ahead, it was just something that Maryland couldn't stop. I'll tell you, my favorite play of the game, Carson, was the fullback handoff there to Anderson for him to be able, or Jordan Anderson, I almost called him Josh Anderson, Jordan Anderson with the 20-yard run there. Love to see a fullback getting the ball in his hands and able to run downfield a little bit. And I wasn't there, but you were there. Did the stadium kind of explode a little bit like I was thinking it sounded like it did once he got that rush?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the stadium, the first sound was kind of like a sound of surprise, and then, the cheers followed. The press box, a few of us that had followed his recruitment, a few of us, obviously you're not allowed to cheer in the press box, but there were some, oh, is that Jordan Anderson? Some responses like that, because, as a prospect, he wasn't particularly highly rated, but he was incredibly productive, and he played running back in high school. So while he does play some fullback here at Illinois, and he also occasionally some tight end reps, he's a very flexible player. I remember watching him in high school. He won a state championship at Joliet Catholic, and against Fenwick in the state title game, he rushed for dang near 300 yards. I mean, the guy's productive. He's just, it's kind of stuck behind a very deep backfield right now. So seeing him get in and get that rep, he's a guy, he's ready to make the most out of whatever opportunity they give him. So it was great to see. There's another guy today too, Mario Sanders, who did the same. He's probably wide receiver 6 on the depth chart, and he got a target on the deep right side of the field and almost scored. And again, it just shows there is some depth on the Illini offense that we maybe haven't even seen yet this season. And I think there's probably another guy or two on both the running back and receivers rooms that are ready to show out if they're given the opportunity.
Biggest thing with this offense is to keep Barry Lunny Jr. around because he was really scheming up some good things today, and he's done a good job all season. You know, the defense has had their moments this season, but really the offense. I mean, the offense has scored the most points on Ohio State, the number one team in the country, as anybody this season, and it looks like they really have a good handle of being able to go tempo and then go, you know, a little bit slower and stuff like that. So they're really doing a great job right now. Carson, I did not tell you I was going to ask this, so if you do not have any information on it, please let me know. But it was a home game, which means there may have been some recruits there. Did you hear anything about some of the recruits that were there, and if anything impressed them, or if there were any guys that maybe were surprise visitors or anything like that?
For sure. I think there were a couple junior college offensive linemen that visited. The first and foremost is TJ Taylor. Depending on the recruiting service, he's the number 1 or number 2 ranked JUCO offensive tackle in the country out of College of the Canyons. Very talented kid. I got to see him in person. Did not get to talk. They brought a lot of the junior college visitors in a little bit later as compared to the high school kids. But just seeing him, he looks as advertised. He's every bit of 6'5", 300 pounds. Big kid. Looks like he can move. His tape is awesome. He's taken a few visits. I've seen he's been at SMU prior to this and a couple other Pacific Mountain West type schools. And he's a no-brainer Power 4 recruit, and Illinois seems to be pushing quite hard here. Another guy, and this guy was not an announced visitor prior, was Micah Smith, 4-star, top 300, top 200 offensive lineman out of Vero Beach in Florida. Program that Coach Bielema has a connection to. He's longtime friends with the head coach there, and we've taken Vero Beach kids in the past. We're recruiting a couple of Vero Beach kids this season. Micah Smith, as well as Xavier Stinson, who we covered a couple weeks ago, who took a visit to Illinois. I think the Illini are sitting pretty well with him. Champion Smith is currently a UCLA commit. Ohio State, Tennessee, Ole Miss have also received visits from him. Right now, the vibe on his recruitment is we don't quite know where he's going to end up. Until assumed otherwise, UCLA, because he hasn't decommitted yet. But he's taken the visits to Ole Miss, Illinois, Tennessee since committing to UCLA. So clearly it's not a hard commitment, especially while they don't have a hired coach yet. So he's the guy that I'm going to watch. Declined to do any interviews today, but I did get to snap a photo of him pregame. That's up on the Twitter. So all the Illinois fans know he was there. Go show him love on that if you haven't already. But he's a very talented recruit. We don't quite know what the lean is yet for wherever he wants to go, but very talented kid, and the fans should be very excited that they were looking at him on campus, because that was a big question heading into the last few weeks of the season.
Yeah, Micah Smith is definitely a very good prospect. Ohio State was going after him for a while, and then he committed to UCLA, I believe, and UCLA is looking to hold on to him. But he's a pretty coveted prospect. He's somebody that a lot of larger schools, like you said, Ole Miss, Ohio State, are going after. And if he did come to Illinois, I wouldn't say he'd start day one, but I would say he'd be somebody that probably gets some whispers at some point, because he's a good prospect and somebody that's definitely going to find some playing time early on in college if he goes to, Illinois or UCLA, something like that. So, all right, Carson, anything else from the game you want to get to before I get out of here?
Yeah, we could do just a couple of quick hitters. I'm not going to go as in depth, but a couple of recruits that also were present on campus. Justin Johnson, a cornerback out of Evanston, Illinois. He's a top 20 player in the state of Illinois in the 2027 cycle. Very talented kid. He's also a higher level track athlete. He's got D1 upside in both sports. I think he probably will play football at the next level. He's a kid Illinois, already has an Illinois offer. He has a handful of Big Ten offers, and this was, I believe, his first or second time on Illinois' campus. Doug Buchan got the interview with him, so stay tuned for coming week or two. I'm sure we'll have an update on the website. Additionally, Lucas Prock, a 2028 quarterback out of the East Coast, was on campus. He already has an offer from Illinois as well. And then, a couple young and up and coming guys. The 2029 recruit that I enjoyed talking to, Tylen Forney. He's out of, I have to double check the name. I believe it is Valley View High School in Arkansas. He's a dual sport baseball and football recruit. Plays linebacker and tight end, and he's also an Illinois legacy recruit. His dad played football for a year here, as well as 4 years of baseball. lettered in both sports. So he's a very talented kid. Coaching staff has been in contact with him. Spoke to him. Seems like a great kid, great family, and it's not often you see high school freshmen get on campus for visits this early. And it wasn't his first time at Illinois either. He originally was from the area, and he's camped at Illinois a couple times already. So, I don't think they're going to offer a freshman right away, but it's interesting to see that there's a freshman in high school who's been on the Illinois campus multiple times already for unofficial visits. That's a kid that I think is worth monitoring in the coming year or two.
Hey, listen, I didn't even tell Carson we were going to talk recruiting on this episode, and we talked about recruiting almost as long as we talked about the entire game. You won't find that all that many other places, so go ahead, go on over to Illinois with On3 Network, Orange and Blue News there. A lot of great content Carson and Doug are putting out over there, and like and subscribe here to Talk Illini. I'm going to venture to say you're probably not going to hear 1 or 2 minutes on a 2029 recruit for Illinois football. Very many other places. I'm not disparaging anybody. I'm just saying I don't think you're going to hear that very many other places. So go ahead, lock it in here at Talk Illini. Sonny, me, Carson, giving you guys great content here. Carson, is there anything else game-wise, recruiting-wise before we get out of here?
I don't quite want to say any names, but I would say next week or so, I would be on the watch. I think there could be a name or two that might pop. We'll have more of that in the coming days.
There you go. Nice little tease for you there. So stay locked in here at Talk Illini, Orange and Blues News with the On3 Network. Like, subscribe, do all the good stuff. We appreciate it. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.